Tonight, no light at the end of the power line. Hundreds of thousands from the South to the Midwest are spending yet another winter night in the dark, many without heat, nearly a week after the deadly storm. I'm Maggie Rodriguez. Also tonight, the president takes aim at the Senate as Republicans push their own economic package. And the ocean, as you've never seen it before. Now you can Google it.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening. Katie's on assignment. She'll be along later in the broadcast. We begin tonight with a dire forecast for parts of the country still reeling from last week's ice storm. Another blast of cold air is heading south. This as nearly 500,000 homes and businesses are still without power, and the death toll is up to 47. Hari Srinivasan is in Marion, Kentucky, where sub-freezing temperatures are forecast through Wednesday.
National Guard!
Every National Guard member in Kentucky has been called into service, 4,600 strong. They are checking on rural residents door by door.
But wait, they have a generator too.
It is the worst natural disaster in the state's history. More than 5,000 utility workers have been working around the clock, but there are still more than 255,000 homes and businesses without power in Kentucky. In neighboring Arkansas, 119,000. The ice storm's devastation reaches into Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, and Oklahoma as well.
Well, it looks like where bombs went off. You know, you can see everything's down, trees are down, power lines, even poles, and everything's down.
Near Crane, Kentucky, Bill and Gwen Wilson have been living without power for a week now. They wear their coats around a natural gas fireplace for warmth and use a barbecue grill in the tool shed for a stove.
And it may not be a perfect meal, but we have a meal.
But Gwen is on her last tank of oxygen that she needs at night.
It's all right. I'm still breathing.
And Bill is starting to miss the little things.
Convenience. Taking a bath would be one good thing.
7 days after the storm, towns like Marion are still completely without power because in this county alone, the ice storm brought down 300 power poles.
I've been here 30-something years. This is the worst one we've had by far.
It could be several more days until main streets like this one get their lights turned back on. The governor of Kentucky has already reached out to President Obama and is asking for additional federal dollars to bring his state back to life. Maggie?
Hari Srinivasan, thank you. And speaking of the economy, there is new evidence the recession is deepening. The government reported today that Americans have now cut their spending a record 6 months in a row. The Senate, meanwhile, is now debating the president's stimulus package as consumer casualties of the economic mess keep mounting. Here's Chief White House correspondent Chip Reed.
From businesses to home buyers to consumers looking at new cars, it just keeps getting tougher to get a loan. A new survey by the Federal Reserve says nearly 60% of banks have tightened standards on consumer loans. More evidence that the $350 billion Congress gave the banks to loosen up credit hasn't worked. After a long internal debate, the Obama economic team expects to release details next week of its plan to spend the second $350 billion, promising this time it will help millions of ordinary people, not just banks and Wall Street executives.
People are being laid off.
In the Oval Office today, the president said the news on jobs is no better. Today, Macy's announced 7,000 layoffs. The president again used the dismal economic news to prod Congress to pass his $800 billion plus economic stimulus bill.
What we can't do is let very modest differences get in the way of the overall package moving forward swiftly.
But Senate Republicans say the differences are far from modest and accuse Democrats of throwing money at all their favorite projects.
This is a lot of money. Now, we know we have a huge economy. We know we need to jumpstart it, but most of my members feel we can do it for less.
To rally grassroots support for the stimulus, Mr. Obama used one of his campaign's most successful tactics, today sending his first mass email as president to 13 million supporters telling them, "I hope to sign the recovery plan into law in the next few weeks, but I need your help to spread the word and build support." White House officials say the president is still committed to getting Republican support for his economic plan, noting that tomorrow he's expected to nominate Republican Senator Judd Gregg, a budget hawk, to be his commerce secretary. Maggie?
Chip Reed. Thank you, Chip. Now to the president's cabinet. The Senate today confirmed Eric Holder as Attorney General. The vote was 75-21, and it came after Republicans tried but failed to get Holder to pledge he would not prosecute intelligence agents who participated in harsh interrogations. Tom Daschle, meanwhile, trying to salvage his nomination for health secretary, met behind closed doors with the Senate Finance Committee to explain his failure to pay more than $120,000 in taxes. And at a ceremonial swearing-in today for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, she paid tribute to her husband, the former president.
I am so grateful to him for a lifetime of all kinds of experiences, which have given me an extraordinary richness that I am absolutely beholden to and grateful for.
Some pictures like that one are priceless, but one picture could cost Michael Phelps millions of dollars. Tonight, the Olympic swimmer is trying to keep his image and his lucrative endorsements afloat. Here's Kelly Kobiella.
He's the undisputed king of the pool, but today, Olympic gold medalist Michael Phelps is just trying to keep his head above water. This is why. A photograph published in a British tabloid over the weekend that appears to show him smoking marijuana at a party last November. Almost immediately, the 23-year-old Phelps apologized on his Facebook page. Calling his behavior regrettable, he said, "I acted in a youthful and inappropriate way, not in a manner that people have come to expect from me." Since his record 8 gold medal wins last summer, Phelps has been swimming in endorsements and is reported to be worth as much as $50 million. His main supporter, Speedo, and watch company Omega so far are standing by him, but other companies may not be so generous.
Powerball. Kellogg's Frost Flakes, where you're really targeting kids and moms, I don't really know about that. Maybe I wouldn't resign him there.
It's his hero status among kids that could take the biggest hit. USA Swimming youth coach Jim Kelly says it's a lesson for his own students.
We're going to take something from it, and we're going to try and turn it into a positive thing for our kids. You know, that's all we can do.
Phelps has had to apologize for his behavior before, after being arrested for drunk driving 4 years ago. But with his Beijing success, there's more to lose this time.
He's been partying constantly since Beijing, and this is probably a wake-up call that he needs to chill out, stop getting drunk 3 or 4 nights a week, and know that he's a public figure.
Question is, will the public and his endorsers accept it as a simple mistake the second time around? Kelly Kobiella, CBS News, Tampa.
From the swimming pool to the ocean now, and a new program rolled out today by Google. Daniel Seberg reports it opens a new window into that world that makes up 70% of our planet.
Google Earth is adding the oceans, allowing people to dive into the deep blue right from their desktop.
Vast parts of it are largely unexplored, and we don't really know what's down there.
While the visibility in the water has been cleaned up, everything you see is based on actual data. It's not quite swimming with the fishes, but it will let you see where they live.
This is really an undersea canyon that's quite dramatic. It's similar in scale to the Grand Canyon.
You can also click on icons to see photos and sometimes video of endangered species, like this grouper, or this new type of shrimp off the coast of Spain.
And you'll find lots and lots of them.
There's even a fish GPS. You can follow creatures that have been tagged, like this shark, from above the water or below it.
This is its actual pattern as tracked by this receiver.
A worldwide network of scientists will be constantly adding video, photos, and underwater topography.
Just as Google Earth has connected people to far-off places and made them real, this is going to connect people to the ocean and make it a much more real and accessible place.
The good news is you don't need to be a marine biologist or a computer whiz. Once you download the latest version of Google Earth, which is free, it's just a matter of double-clicking on the ocean to get more detail. Then scroll your mouse over different icons to see what lies beneath or on the surface.
The best surf spots in the world with photographs of the waves, the best kite surfing spots, the best windsurfing spots.
For tourists, students, and landlubbers alike, it's a unique underwater adventure, and one that doesn't mean getting all wet. Daniel Seberg, CBS News, New York.
Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, a tragedy on the water. Lives and livelihoods changed by the Exxon Valdez disaster. It's been nearly 20 years since the Exxon Valdez oil tanker struck a reef in Alaska's Prince William Sound, causing an epic natural disaster. The environment is recovering slowly, but Byron Pitts reports many fishermen may not.
This was John Platt, a fisherman from Cordova, Alaska, back in the good old days. Back in the 80s, when an Alaskan fisherman could work hard and make a good living. That was then. This is now.
My current financial situation is terrible.
He still earns his living fishing, but today John Platt is deep in debt, waiting on a check he will never cash.
My net worth is negative right now. Negative.
Platt is one of the 32,000 original plaintiffs in a lawsuit against corporate giant ExxonMobil following the Exxon Valdez oil spill in 1989. 11 million gallons of oil spilled along 1,300 miles of Alaskan coastline. The fishing industry was devastated. It was the worst disaster of its kind in U.S. history. Company executives promised to make everyone, quote, whole.
Whatever it takes to keep you whole. Now you have my word on that, Don Cornett. I told you that.
Don Cornett retired in 1996. He says Exxon hired fishermen to help clean up the spill in 1989. Fishermen like John Platt, who made nearly $600,000 that year. In total, ExxonMobil spent more than $3.8 billion in cleanup costs, fines, and compensation. But in 1994, an Anchorage jury found Exxon acted recklessly and awarded victims of the spill $5 billion in punitive damages. An appeals court later cut that award in half. But after nearly 15 years in appeals, the case finally reached the U.S. Supreme Court last year, where the justices reduced the $2.5 billion in punitive damages to just over $507 million. Platt's share of the settlement is expected to be close to $400,000, but he owes the state of Alaska $600,000 for his commercial fishing licenses, so his check will go straight to the state. But here's the kicker. He still must pay the taxes on it.
A lot of people just aren't going to make it.
At least 6,000 of the original plaintiffs have died, and 8,000 have liens on their settlements, ranging from child support to back taxes. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski.
I think that's been Exxon's strategy every step of the way, to wear everybody down. They've succeeded in fatiguing those who were entitled to this compensation.
Osa Schultz and her husband got their checks last month, about $50,000. They are still in debt.
We'd always expected that the settlement would make a big difference and bring us back. It didn't even come close.
She testified before Congress last year about the corrupting influence, she says, big business has on the political and legal system.
Exxon's vast power and influence has tipped the scales of justice. For nearly a generation, our community has been the David to their Goliath.
For its part, ExxonMobil declined our request for an interview, instead issuing this statement saying in part, the Exxon Valdez oil spill was a tragic accident and one which the company deeply regrets. Nearly 20 years later, the legal battle is not over. Both sides are awaiting an appeals court decision to see if ExxonMobil has to pay interest on the $507 million award. That decision could come as soon as this month. Byron Pitts, CBS News, New York.
Coming up next, in this recession, it's become a lot tougher to book a table here. The recession has a lot of Americans changing their lifestyles, looking to save a buck anywhere they can. As Sandra Hughes reports tonight, for some, that means rediscovering the library.
In a town used to lining up for celebrities, these days the lines are streaming into an unlikely place, the Los Angeles Public Library.
The bear snores on.
In tough economic times, it's becoming the hotspot for just about everyone. It's standing room only during children's programs. Melanie Jarvid and her son Aaron are regulars.
What does the cow say? Moo. With the way how the economy is, we've been coming more often and checking books more often.
In 2008, 18 million people visited Los Angeles public libraries. That's 2 million more than the year before. Many are recently unemployed and coming for help. Every computer terminal is being used, and librarians have become job counselors.
It's actually the first and only library I've been to.
For Zach Pond, who has an MBA but no job, the library is his office.
It's quiet. There's a place you can work. You feel like you're moving forward. So it's a good
place
place
to be productive.
Absolutely.
Almost 156 million Americans now have library cards, more than any time since officials started keeping records in 1990. This as funds are being drastically cut. Cities just don't have the money to spare with shrinking budgets.
In a time when people need libraries most, some libraries aren't able to meet that demand and in fact are even being cut back or closed.
In Philadelphia, protesters fought a plan to close 11 libraries. Still, hours will be reduced. Today, 2 of 3 branches in Troy, New York will close, and Muncie, Indiana has plans to close 3 of its 5 branches. All as more people are rediscovering the value of the public library.
It's free unless you don't return it on time, and then you have to pay the fine.
But everyone will pay the price if budget cuts mean libraries aren't there when people need them most. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And finally tonight, a plane crash that had a very different ending. The miracle splash landing of a U.S. Airways Airbus here in New York. Katie Couric has just spoken to the captain and crew in their first exclusive interview.
Maggie, the crew of Flight 1549 have become national celebrities ever since their plane went down on that cold winter afternoon 2.5 weeks ago. They've been invited to Washington for the inauguration. Captain Sully Sullenberger, who was piloting the plane, got a hero celebration in his hometown of Danville, California. And last night, a Super Bowl salute in Tampa. But Sullenberger and his crew are just now telling the harrowing accounts of that 5.5-minute flight from LaGuardia Airport in New York City to the Hudson River after their plane was struck by birds and both engines went out. They say they will be forever bonded by this experience, and their accounts are riveting. Today in Charlotte, North Carolina, there was a very emotional and joyful reunion between the 5 members of this crew and some of their passengers and their families. You can see my complete interview with Captain Sullenberger and the crew Sunday evening on 60 Minutes right here on CBS. And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. With thanks to Maggie Rodriguez in New York, I'm Katie Couric in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'll see you tomorrow night from Washington.